Morning, team. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Ms. Hendrickson has asked to go first. So we will do town treasurer first, and thanks for coming.
I'm usually at the end, so this is exciting.
This is exciting.
Good morning.
She's making us money, right? So
I am this month. Okay, so you all should have gotten a copy of an updated report. So I'm going to go to the update, which is for December when we have the numbers, and we are now at 2.325,650 and 39 cents. So our budget was 1.75, so we're about 575,000 over budget. Now, I just want to add one note of why we are over budget. And everybody says, oh, rates are up. That's part of it. But the biggest part of this is we got a new product called the sweeps from M&T, which every night they sweep out what's extra and they give us the benefit of it. Normally with an operating bank, you just get an earnings credit. But they are now giving us the benefit of actual rates. So we have rates of like 5.2 every single night. That accounts for almost $1 million of the earnings. So if I took that product out, you'd be at $1.3 billion, which is still great, but it isn't the same. But I want to emphasize it's because of the new product, which we didn't have at budget time last year. So that's a large part of what we're doing. But any questions other than we're doing fine?
no, this is all great. I know one of your stated strategies is security through diversification. So in other words, preservation of principal. We don't get too much in terms of concentration. But we've got 25 million at Chase, 14 million, well, 40 million total across the two Chase accounts that we've got here, the 24 million in the M&T sweep account. Just in terms of concentration there, how do you think about those balances at those two institutions?
Well, let me tell you what they are, and then you'll understand why they're that high, because they're not that high today. And remember, this is December. So the 23 million in the Chase bond account, and that's in the new stuff I gave you, is the HHR money and whatever else bond money proceeds we haven't spent. So that's all HHR. The 14 million that's in the Chase, it says matured investments. That's all been, almost all of that's been, well, I think all of it almost is reladdered in January. I did, give me 1 minute and I'll tell you exactly what I did. We reladdered, let's see, to go, and it tries to match our cash flow that Jen has. And they're all short, but we reladdered 6, 9, 12 million is already in T-bills. So that money, that 14 that's there, is really not 14. It's what it is some accrued interest until Jen takes that and uses it. So that's laddered, and we should earn about 139,000 on that ladder, which I've only gone out to ladder 4 months because that's where the yield curve is. But we have one old T-bill coming due this week, and I think it's 5 or 6 million, and that will also be reladdered. So that money will be reinvested at a much higher rate. The rates that we got for I've got 523, 522, 517, and 513. And they're due February, March, April, and May. So again, it's a timing difference that you're seeing it in December, but by January, that was when the end of our last ladder was, so we've reladdered.
And similarly for M&T,
M&T, the amount that's coming in, Kathy will tell you all about that, but some of that's early taxes, but everything that comes in that we don't need is swept out into the sweeps account, which is what I was just talking about. And last time I looked, that was earning at 5.2%.
got it.
That is the most important thing that has happened to us, and I just hope and pray that it keeps on going. I don't know anybody else who has that account, but we've been offered it. And I think it's a sign for us that we are an important client of M&T.
Well, you're important.
Well, that's why we earn more, is because they want to
There you
keep
go.
us. That's my take on it, but,
Questions for Joan?
Hey, John,
yeah.
I have a question. So the 40 million, or it's about 40%, I guess.
I can't hear you, Monica. I'm
The
sorry.
40% of our funds will stay in the Chase account, the HHR money?
Yes, because it's kind of a simplistic reason, but banking world is, you and I know from last year, is a little unsteady, and it's a question of where do you put 40, it's 25 million now, but that the matured stuff is already out. That's in JP Morgan Investments right now. So in other words, that 14 million that you're seeing there, I think it's about 14 million, 14.5 million. That's already been reinvested in T-bills. So it won't, that's not in the Chase account as of today. Okay, that's what I was just talking about. That's at least 12 million plus that is already been reinvested in a new ladder. Okay, and again, I've laddered month by month. If you look at the yield curve, you used to be able to go out 6 months, but now it's dropping at 6 months, so I'm laddering to 4 months, and that's fine. The 23.8 million, where do you put 23.8 million? That's safe. There are only 2 places that I have, 2 banks that I would put that kind of money in, and Chase is one of them. And again, I don't want to get into the bond stuff, but we're earning 2.55, which is not great, but our nick tick for those bonds was 3.1. So it's not terrible.
Right.
But it's a safety issue of, I can't go down the street and just put in 23 million, any bank. Because when I take it out, that will really upset their asset liability position. But I won't make a dent in what Chase's capital and asset liability position when we can take out whenever we need. So
Right.
that's really the reason that it's there.
Okay, I'm just looking at the M&T sweep at 5 1/4.
The sweep is earning, as I said, now, it's, as of December, it was 5.05, but it was 5.20 last time I looked. Again, this is a nightly rate, it changes, just like STIF changes daily.
Right. Got it. So the bands that are maturing, maybe this is a Jen question, but where does that money, when, I think they matured June 1st?
No,
That's
April.
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 Yeah.
We
So-
we rebond in April.
So will that money sit anywhere, or will it?
That's a good question, but that's really for the Board of Finance.
Okay.
If they want to they have to do something, because they're due.
Right.
Do they want to renew them? Do they want to do them in bonds? We need to do something.
Right.
And the question is, what's the rate? But that's a Board of Finance question.
Right, I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
in between that pause, where does that money go?
You say in between the pause,
Is it
from now till April?
No, from April to when we do another bond issue.
Well,
Where
it will
does
go,
this-
it will be invested. The question is just how much are they actually going to issue? Because the 23 that was issued was based on an anticipated cash flow.
Right,
So they're going to have to take another look at the cash flow and make a determination as to how much they actually need at this point. But whatever they borrow will be invested.
So
It's invested to, don't forget, account is being drawn down upon.
Yeah.
Which is part of the issue, reason it's in a money market, because I can't put it out there, because I don't know how much HHR is going to need to pay. They got to pay their bills, when they have something done. So this is a decreasing account over time. Where we've had a bit of an issue is because of all the, construction delay, not delays, but escalations. It's a complicated project. And so it hasn't drawn down as fast as we'd like, but there's not a nickel that isn't invested overnight. But the issue comes back to those bond proceeds of where is the safest place to put them, and that's the safest place.
Right.
When we did Great Island, for example, we did the same thing.
right.
So Kate, as a technical matter, if they decided, say, 5 million of those notes, those proceeds were not going to be needed for a while. I could, on maturity, not bond those and let them sit.
Correct.
Right, not borrow
Well,
the
they
money,
have
not borrow.
whatever we borrowed, the 23 million in notes that we borrowed, they have to, as Joan said, we have to do something. We either have to pay them off or we have to roll them into a bond.
Well,
or
so-
roll them into
Or
another
more
note.
notes.
All right, so,
We
so
could-
let's say I wanted to keep the notes for a while, which I understand we could go on for another few years with just notes. So let's say I wanted to continue that, but I say, there's 10 million of that I'm not gonna need for a while. When these notes mature, could I just pay that? Is the bond authorization preserved where they could go out and get the next round of notes, say 6 months later for that, if we're not gonna need that money?
Absolutely.
So there was no
Yeah.
reason to pay
So,
the interest
yeah,
if we're
so
not gonna need
in
it.
April, they
Right.
could decide, we're gonna pay off 10 million. We're gonna roll 13 million into another note. And that note could be 6 months, it could be a year. They
Yeah,
have
so-
options.
So in that spirit, given the RTM approval of the additional bonding for HHR last night, one of the things they ought to do is quickly come up with a schedule to give the Board of Finance around their cash anticipation needs,
Yep.
so that we only renew the notes that we need in April, and we let it ride for a while. And the bond authorizations not expire, so they can actually layer
Right.
in the notes as they need them.
The bond authorization, I mean, there are rules around from the time you finish the project, how much longer you have to issue bonds against that authorization. But as long as the project is ongoing,
We're
the
good.
authorization is not going to expire.
Okay, so they can bond whenever against a cash schedule that the committee provides?
Yes.
Great, okay. Any other questions for Joan?
Nope.
Thank you, Joan.
Thanks, John.
Great, thank you.
Is anyone else pressed for time and needs to go early and would like to go next? Mr. Cameron?
The people at the end.
Thank you for accommodating me. Jim Cameron, Program Director, Darien TV 79. We have a couple of new shows which are drawing large audiences. One of them is the First Selectmen's Explainer videos, and we're looking forward to seeing Chapter 2.
Being produced this week.
Excellent, excellent. And we've also added an excerpt from the Darien Police Commission meetings, which we're just calling Police Blotter. And it's a list of all of the police department's activities since the previous meeting. Runs about 2.5 minutes. We're mimicking what used to be the most popular thing in the weekly newspaper. Everybody wanted to read.
Will there be reenactments that we could?
No, but it's finding a nice audience as well too, and I think it's a great way of not only emphasizing to the community what the police department is doing, but reminding them about unlocked cars and mail fraud, etc. So it's like Dick Tracy, Crime Stoppers notebook. Know the criminals and how to avoid them. Otherwise, programming continues apace. The audience has grown. Our most popular shows, no surprise, anything that deals with Great Island. So there's a lot of interest in Great Island, and we're going to cover it as well as we possibly can and keep the public informed. So keep it coming. Happy to answer any questions.
So I have to say, I get the entire quarterly update, all these pages. The first thing I go to look for, and I don't have it, which is viewership in Singapore. I had this before, and I was looking for my fans in Singapore. I got nothing, so I'm
Well,
sad
I
about
can't
that.
explain what's happened to them all, but I think the local audience is probably what matters more.
I'm teasing.
I think some people are probably traveling. I mean, we do see a nice geographic distribution from the UK, from California, from New England, and I assume that's either snowbirds or people that are just kind of following us because they're on the road.
One question I had was just equipment related, and I'm sorry, I don't know what the oversight of the equipment is in the town hall auditorium. But one thing I noticed last night is that there's just a tinny microphone. The speakers are kind of hard to hear, and it's just a little bit distorted. So where are we on the investments in that? Just having
Please, I would let Ms.
having
Bush
crystal
explain
clear
that one.
sound, both on TV, but also just in the auditorium itself.
Yeah, it's awful in the
Yeah.
auditorium.
What's the plan?
We have, we selected the vendor, and we had a little bit of trouble getting them set up as a vendor because we were a little lack of communication on getting their their I-9, whatever, W-9. But we are starting to work. I don't have a start date on the actual work, but that tinniness should be taken care of. We're actually going to have a setup where the tables will have microphones in them so that you don't have to pass the mic back and forth, and we're getting new speakers. So the sound quality should be greatly improved when the project is done.
One request I would have is that the podium mic is fairly short, and because there's a lot of distance, the speakers can't get close enough to the microphone to be heard. And so if we could get a longer microphone on that podium, that came up half a dozen times just last night listening
Yeah.
to the discussions. They just needed something longer to get up closer to their mouth.
Yeah,
I
and
think
we
that
can also
has
raise
to
the
do with
volume on that
quality
one
of
as well, too.
mics.
Yeah, the mic is lame, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
when it gets replaced, to get one that people can really bring up to their mouth.
yep.
Okay.
So that can't happen soon enough.
I know.
Maybe this will help my question. This grant that you received, is this a one-time, the new grant?
Well, the Area 9 Cable Council, on which I serve as vice chairman, collects money from all the cable subscribers, both Frontier and Altice Optimum, and distributes it. And we get about $8,000 a year for capital equipment, some of which can also be used for videographers. So the grant I'm mentioning here is the last, it's round 3 of the grant process, and that's $1,300 specifically for videographers. But, we're getting a good chunk of money, and we're investing it in new equipment and also helping pay for the videographers that make the coverage possible with that equipment.
Well, you provide a real service for the town,
Thank
really.
you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Any other questions for Mr. Cameron? Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you very much.
All right, no one else pressing, we'll try to keep moving along. Mr. Homicki.
I don't think I have any viewers from Singapore, but as the assessor, the highlight of my report would be the revaluation. It's a 5-year update. We will be signing off on the revaluation on time. There will be an increase in the total grant list. The revaluation company, as I start out saying, that they had about 600 phone calls for informal hearings, which we anticipated 10% of of the 7,000 parcels, so we were right on task for that. And we had about 220, 230 revisits. They were pretty much mild issues, be it wetlands issues or traffic influence issues. But I can't compliment enough the social media effort that Marlene gave, that you gave, John, for the online access, the revisions we've done to the website. Everything's click. Everybody wants a click, and they want access to the sales. Over 650 sales were used over the past 2 years. Due diligence with a 3-person to 5-person team of the contractors we had and the 3 certified assessors in our office. So that's one of the highlights of the beginning of my report. Between February and May, we'll be taking applications for elderly homeowners, seniors that are over the age of 65 whose income are under $62,400. That program will start up for the next quarter. I did give you a little bit of an explanation of what we call oblique imagery. It's a software that was aerial flights of performed twice over the town of Darien. It's a system that allowed us to look at all the properties, especially if they had long driveways. We call them flag lots. And waterfront properties, gated communities. It gives us a 360-degree view of each property. And prior to doing that, we did a footprint comparison between what's on the planning and zoning Jeremy's maps with our imagery. And we identified about 250 properties where patios and decks were not identified in the past. They were relatively nominal, but I think the technology is something I want to highlight, and the sophistication of the system. And I also just wanted to give you the copy of the timeline and the efforts that were given. So basically an overview within 2 minutes of Singapore review.
Okay. I have to say, I was amazed that there are 17,000 taxable motor vehicles in a town of not quite 22,000 people. I don't know if that's anomalous, but it seemed like a lot.
We have about 2,000 that are unpriced. It's a computer medium to put values on those through the motor vehicle department. The governor's trying to restructure the motor vehicle tax, so that'll be work in progress. It's actually being reviewed every year. But, yep.
And then when do you expect to have the final grand list figure? Now that all
I have about 2.5 weeks of work to do in the next 7 days, and we'll get it done on time.
Okay, and the advertised increase in the grand list from the preliminary reports was around 29%. Is that figure holding?
That is holding, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Um,
And there is parity townwide. There are some that are increasing of 30, 40, 35%. Those are usually ones that have new kitchens, new bathrooms, new additions. Renovations and upgrades have happened since the last revamp.
Okay. And the mapping technology, this is not just a Google Maps, this is a lot more precise and detailed that you've subscribed to.
Yes.
Is that right?
Very sophisticated, different things.
Okay.
And usable by other departments, not just yours.
Right, because Public Works, you guys have that, planning and zoning, you guys have it as well.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's terrific. Other questions for Tony?
Thank you. Hey, Tony, so you use 18 months' worth of back sales, correct?
Pardon me?
18 months' worth of sales, that's your,
The final analysis was the 18 months. We reviewed over 3 years without time adjustments, but the process and procedures for mass appraisal is anywhere from 12 months to as much as 2 years. So that 18 months did not include the full 600, it's about 430, 440 sales. Comparable market values are really, in the website, we have a digital map that people can click on through the assessor. It's tax and collection, hit tax assessor, click on the revaluation and scroll right down. It's a digital map of each and one of the sales, the date of the sale and the sale price.
okay. And you've been using that same time frame for the last 5 cycles,
The
right?
last 5 revals, yeah.
Okay.
Other questions for Tony? Excellent, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, emergency medical services, Joe.
Happy New Year, everybody. Happy to report it was a quiet end to 2023 for us. So I don't have much to add other than a plug for our next community CPR class, which is taking place this Sunday at Post, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and you can register online. And I'll answer any questions.
Well, we appreciate what you do. I just had a couple of points. Volunteer ranks, healthy, stable, all good with your,
Always looking for adult volunteers. As you know, we have adult advisors that work very closely with the high school kids, but we also have adult volunteers that staff the ambulance while school is in session. So we are always looking to add to that.
okay, terrific. All your equipment's okay? Any questions about any of that?
Yes, right now we're doing well. Our vehicles are running well, and everything's good.
Any regulatory changes coming or being contemplated that we should know about that you're reading in just the general press or in the sort of data sources you read for emergency services?
There's nothing on the horizon. We just had a new statewide clinical protocols that were put out in December, so we're sort of catching up with training on those. There's some minor revisions, but nothing too earth-shattering there.
Okay. It looks like all of your usage trends are relatively stable. Anything to point out or anything of concern in your mind?
No, we did finish the calendar year with less calls than we did the year before. I just caution that, one downward year does not a trend make. So, over the last 10 years, we have trended up in our call volume. And I think as the town continues to grow, we'll see that in the years to come. So we're strategically working to position ourselves to best respond to everyone's needs in the coming years.
Okay. Other questions for Joe?
I just have one quick one, Joe.
Sure.
I love the charts and graphs, really easy to decipher. The responses, this might have been just due to the drop in actual number of calls, but you had like a 55% drop when I'm looking at hours per day between 23 and 22. What caused that drop this year? Was it just due to lower overall number of calls?
Probably had a lot to do with not bringing people in on, second and third responses that would, basically throughout 2022, we were extremely busy at certain parts of the year.
Okay.
Other questions? Super. Thank you, Bill. All right. Emergency management, Mr. McKeown.
Morning, everybody. I just want to draw attention to the fact that we applied for 3 elevations and 1 acquisition on behalf of residents of Darien this past week. And the other thing that I would like to draw is that we had a great exercise in New Canaan. We participated as a region in last statewide exercise for a tabletop, and I think Monica and the team that was there that day greatly appreciated the fact that we weren't doing another hurricane. It did bring about a lot of discussion on activities that we participate in with the railroad and also I-95. So it was a really great exercise in my opinion. It did leave some of our crew out though, which was hard to make everyone work as a team when half the team or more wasn't there. But it was more of a emergency response exercise than a human services and some of the other departments, public works, things like that. That's all I have.
Okay, first of all, you and the chief and others came by to give me the emergency kind of communications briefing, so thank you, gentlemen, I appreciated that. Just in grants, there's 2 points here. Next round of flood mitigation and building resilient infrastructure in communities was to have a deadline of the 9th, but it was extended to
23rd.
today.
Today.
What is that again?
So FEMA has what they call annual grants. Those are competitive grants across the country. Those are what we applied for with 3 elevations and 1 acquisition. Those are all based out of the 21 floods. So it's a repetitive applying till you get it kind of thing almost. None of that involves town money, except for the fact that if we have any of these get awarded, that we have to ask for the money from the town so that we can get reimbursed by the federal government, but it should be at a no cost to the town.
All right, so I'm aware of one of those residents who's trying to get one of those grants. Did they give a sense of timing? So this is today's the deadline for an application. Did they give a sense of timing as to when they?
In my experience, their deadlines mean nothing. In all seriousness, they try to have a turnaround time of 6 months, but I've never seen 6 months work out, so.
Mark, could you also explain who approves, like we apply, who the next approver is, who the
Sure.
next approver is?
So the State Division of Emergency Management Homeland Security reviews all the applications, and they mainly check to make sure that they fit the FEMA guidelines, which in my opinion all ours do. The approximate average cost of an elevation is around $225,000 roughly. So they're applying for that kind of money from the federal government. There's a 90, 10, or 100% match, which in 100% there's no match from the homeowner, but it all depends on how many times it's repetitively flooded in the past. So once it goes to the state turns it over to the region, which is FEMA Region 1, which is out of Boston. And that process I've seen take 6 months to a year in the past.
And these homes that we just applied for, we applied for them previously.
Correct.
And they were approved by the state.
Correct. Last
And then
year they were
installed it.
applied for under the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, which is money that's derived from the prior presidential declaration. So a set aside is done for the state, and then whoever applies in the state can get a portion of that funds. And that basically was used for large projects by municipalities upstate. They chose to do the larger projects than to help out individual homeowners, in my opinion.
Got it. And what is MPG reimbursement?
Emergency Management Grant Program, so the FEMA, Division of Emergency Management Homeland Security uses funds to promote and improve emergency management across the state. And almost every town in Fairfield County, and I believe the state of Connecticut, it goes towards a portion of the salary of the emergency management director. A very small portion.
I appreciate the
It's about
short, concise
10,000.
report, by the way. This is great.
Try to keep it short.
Other questions for Mark? Thank you, sir. Okay, Jen Charneski is not here today, so we will pass on her report unless you had anything you wanted to comment on, Kate.
No.
No? Okay. Mr. Bush, Fire Marshal.
Morning, all. I have nothing particular to add to my report, just an update downtown. If you continue to hear ongoing hammering from the Corbin District project, it is the hammering of the rock for the underground parking structure that's going to be built there.
And that's in lieu of blasting, right? They figured out
It
that
is
they
in
can
lieu of
hammer.
blasting, because if they had to blast where they are currently, they would have to get state permits and do a rolling roadblock and shut down 95 for the period of the blast, which escalates the cost dramatically. And it seems like they're not gonna have to blast at all, the way it looks right now, so. Other than that, I'll be happy to answer any questions on my report.
One question I had is just on the first page. We've been working on the enhancement of OpenGov capabilities, aiming to incorporate all permanent fees related to our office into that. How does that work? Or how does OpenGov help you in that regard?
So, other permits that we do for liquor licenses, underground storage tanks, daycare facilities, and the like, people will be able to apply to get their either a new storage tank permit, to renew their liquor license, to renew their daycare license, all through OpenGov, as opposed to, and schedule it, and then it's less paper.
Terrific.
It's a different module than the budget.
Yeah. Okay.
Same, company owning it, but different,
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so it ties into the building permit
And then all their
permits and all
paperwork
that.
stored in OpenGov where it
Yes.
could be sent out, copied, printed, whatever. Fantastic, that's great. Okay. I didn't have any other questions. Any questions for Bobby? No, Monica? Thank you, sir, great report, I appreciate it. David, Health Department.
Good morning. I'd like to start off by saying our quest has been solved. We finally brought on our full-time sanitarian.
I met him
Javon
yesterday,
Williams.
congratulations,
Yeah,
terrific.
thanks. It was a long journey. Javon started yesterday, and that's going to really help us be able to coordinate the work with all the new development in town. All our plan reviews were being done off-site by a part-time person remotely. So now we'll be able to do all coordination for all the new facilities here in town, and I'm very pleased. He's fully certified, qualified to go out and start work right away. So people will be seeing him out and about later this week after he gets his paperwork done.
He's fired up. You poached him from Stanford, which is
We did.
which is great.
We did.
And anyway, it's very
Yeah.
exciting. He's
Yeah,
fired up to be
I
here.
think that I'm really looking forward to that, and it's really going to help us a lot. The other thing that we're working on is the health needs assessment. This week is the final week for the residents survey form. And I want to stress the fact that this isn't just a survey form for one person per household, but it's for all residents. We've been finding in our statistical analysis of the responses we've gotten so far, it's about a 3-to-1 response rate, women to men. So I hope that some men can fill out those survey forms. The data will be collected and assembled by the end of this month, and because the survey is closing on Friday, it's all digitized. We're going to be compiling the chronic disease information and from the state health department, as well as EMS data, police data, and assemble all that and write the report, hopefully be done in April for presentation in May.
When's the survey due date?
The end date for the survey is this Friday, the 26th.
Okay, I have not filled mine out, but I will. So if anybody has not done that,
So all
especially you guys,
residents-
please do it.
Yeah, and spouses.
Ages of people?
It's open.
Okay.
It's open. We do have the data from the youth survey from the schools. So, we are going to be incorporating that into the report as well. So we're trying to be as comprehensive as we possibly can in this report. And then finally, I would also like to say thank you to my staff for the years that I've had here. As I said in my report, I'll be retiring at the end of June. I'd like to thank elected officials over the years for the support for the department.
You gonna skip the April one?
Pardon me?
You gonna skip the April meeting?
We'll see you in April, right?
You got another one.
He's hesitating.
You know about lame ducks? No, I'll be here. But I just wanted to, as part of today's presentation, I just want to thank everybody, department heads, staff, residents who've been fantastic. As I said, the response to the disaster of the pandemic in the community it's been the crowning achievement of my professional career to see how the town responded to that crisis. And I just want to thank everybody. It's been an honor and a pleasure to have worked here in Darien. So,
Well, we look forward to celebrating your great tenure as your retirement date approaches, but just on behalf of this whole board, we really appreciate all your work. We wish you well in your retirement. I'm sure there's an interesting chapter somewhere post-retirement that you'll be engaged in, but thank you for all you've done, and we look forward to taking advantage of all your talents, at least through the end of June. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
This was all good. The only, questions I had, one just is on outfitting the pod and the box. So that was with ARPA money? I
Yes.
think we funded that?
Yes.
What's the timing on that being completed, and what would be examples of what would be in that?
Well, there's going to be technology in it, so like laptops, so that it could be set up as a portable station, but then I believe medical equipment and such, so like that we could have a pandemic type response or any kind of emergency response on scene. But
Okay.
probably Kevin Cunningham is the best person to ask that question.
Got it, okay. And then when do you expect, did you say you had to expect the health survey results? When do you?
I want to present in at least no later than May. So our target is to be, I want this to be completely done by the time I'm done. So, and presented. So, and then from there, we move on to the health improvement plan. So we take the information we get from the assessment, and I'd say that the next health director would take that information and move from there.
Okay. And that's for my own edification. So I know you do these, you talk about at the end the septic systems and private wells. How many, this is the chart you have is just the number of, I guess, tests that you did or permits that you reviewed and issued. How many septic systems are there? How big is that world that you oversee?
Yeah, the town's mostly served by sewer. But I think that the last time I did a survey, I think it was about 11% of the community is still on septic. So you have the whole Tokenique area that's septic, with a great deal of challenges from site limitations. And then the north part of town, up closer to the New Canaan border, is septic.
Okay. Other questions for David?
Thank you, David.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. Susan, Human Resources.
Good morning. As you can see from my report, this quarter's pretty much been about recruitment and not a lot of other terribly exciting things, but we do have finally our final two, let's hope, dispatchers in the pipeline, going through the pre-employment process right now. I'm hoping that this new screening tool that we used is going to make a difference in predicting their success going through the training program. We did have a couple of people last year that were hired and looked great and then just couldn't make it through the training program. So this critical screening tool that we put in should be really helpful. Anecdotally, we did have one candidate who did very well on the police app test, which is a written test. It's the test that we usually just used before we started incorporating this. Then she did the critical and didn't do so well. And actually, I spoke to her about it, and she said, do you think this is really what this job is like? And I said, well, I don't know, I've never done the job, but I have to guess that that's the point of this, is that, this was probably a little bit more intense than you'd see on a everyday basis, but I'm assuming it would get to be like this. And she said, you know what, I don't think this is the job I want. You know what I mean? So not only is it a great screening tool for us to screen the candidates, but it's really great for them to be able to get a piece of, an idea of what a day in the life of the dispatcher would be, and it's helpful for them as well. So, hopefully these two are going to stick and make it through. Other than that, oh, the only other thing I didn't put in here, just a point of information, minimum wage went up again on January 1st. It's at $15.69 now. So all of our, we always make sure everybody's making at least that much. We'll make sure that the seasonal kids do in the summertime, but other than that, I don't take any questions.
Is minimum wage in Connecticut now inflation adjusted? Is that
That's what it's, yeah, this year is the first year they've got an economic indicator adjustment that they're making on it. We went through 5 years where it just went up $1 a year for 5 years. Last year being at $15. Now every January 1st it's going to go up based on some economic indicator.
Okay. All finished, or?
Mhm.
Have you received a lot of applications for the new Director of Parks and Rec?
We've received a handful.
I saw at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, I was going to say like five or so far, but that was as of Friday. They
Okay.
come into Karen and she hasn't been here, so I haven't seen what the latest thing is, but
Got
we
it.
have at least 5.
Okay. And then just on the collective bargaining agreement for Town Hall Union, how many employees are covered by that?
30?
Yeah, I think it's closer to 40, but I was going to say in my report, in our meeting, the union has voted to split the dispatchers. Basically, they're splitting into
Carve
2
them out,
unions.
yeah.
So dispatchers will have their own union now. So there will be, right now there are 7 dispatchers, and hopefully there will be 9 soon. So there'd be 9 in that union. And so then I'd say back down to like 32 or so in the
For the
town hall union.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And just to understand, when we say town hall union, it does include people who work at the police department.
Civilians.
The
in the police
civilian employees at the police department.
Got it. Okay. Other questions for Susan?
Susan, I have a quick one. The Public Works review of job descriptions, are you following the same model you did for town?
For the job description piece, yes. We're doing it ourselves. We don't have a consultant doing it.
Okay.
And it's not a compensation study. It's not something we're not going out to other towns. We're not doing market survey of the rates that they're making. Those are contractual and we're not changing that. The union president came to me several months ago because apparently back in 2016 there was some sort of an internal study done, and the HR director and union president at that time sort of started this process and never really finished it. And so what I've had all along in the HR files as job descriptions are not what the unions had. So we need to make sure that they're the same.
Okay.
They're not terribly far off. We've already gone through, the union president and I have gone through all of them on just a really kind of looking at them, comparing them a little bit, and they don't look like they're terribly, like anybody's changed anything terribly different, but we need to make sure that they're consistent, the HR records and the union records, first of all. But then also we are going to do that piece where we're going to interview probably each person in those jobs and make sure that they feel that the job description reflects accurately what they do. There's a possibility that it might lead to, we've had a couple of people ask about reclassifications in the Public Works union. It's a possibility that we might see a couple of positions where we say, oh, well, some things have been added, maybe they need to move up a grade or down a grade, but not down a grade. But we wouldn't be changing any of the rates that are in the union contract right now.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions? Super, thank you.
Thank you.
Ally, Human Services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have anything else to add, but just did want to put another shout out that we have another mental health first aid training coming up February 7th and 8th at Post 53. Thank you, Joe. And we do still have some spots. Luckily, we have about 21 people registered and it can go up to 30. We had to cancel the one in November because probably the time of year, but quite a few people dropped out. And if it's under 10 people, the dynamic doesn't really work as well. So there's still room. People can email me directly to register. It's Paula Sutliff co-leads it with me. She's the public health nurse.
So that's actually one of my 2 questions. What's the time requirement for all that? So you sign up for the 7th and 8th.
Mm-hmm.
You're there how long for each
It's
day?
from 8:30 to 1. We usually end a little before 1 each day. And it is people are required to stay the whole time.
Okay. And
But
there's a
just to
cer-
say,
there's
it's
a-
very
there's a-
interactive. Many people in here, it's not like we're just lecturing for, 8 hours or whatever it is.
You get like a CPR certification for
Exactly,
having
but
all
for
that.
mental health.
Marcy, you did that? or-
did.
Yeah, it's good.
Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Well needed in every aspect of your life.
It's worthwhile.
Yep.
All right. I don't know what my calendar looks like, but I'd actually like to do that, so I'll see about that.
And we'll offer more. So if it doesn't work out for February 7th and 8th, we have to do at least 3 a year. So hopefully the interest continues. But we also, it's not just Darien residents, it's anyone who serves the Darien community. So we have people coming from the library again, from Post 53, some town hall employees. And then it's, it went out on the wires. Actually, the newsletter, Marley, we had a few people respond from that. And it went out to all the school wires. So it's not just Darien residents, it's also people who serve the Darien community.
So a couple things. One is just at the top where you say 30 new clients, 25 last quarter, 30 same as last year. I'm just kind of curious, do you start with a base of currently served clients, and we're talking about additions, drop-offs, so just get a clarity for kind of what your total sort of client workload looks like, sort of at the beginning. We added this many in the quarter, these number of folks came off, and we've ended with sort of a caseload that looks like this, so we can just get a better scope of your workload as opposed to just 30 new clients. That would help me just dimensionalize kind of how much activity you've got going on just with clients you serve.
So we have a program that we use that we keep track, which is where all those statistics are from, of all of our client interactions and all. It's hard to say exactly how many, because we probably have maybe 1,000, I'm ballparking, but some of them we only see once a year, or we see once and then we don't see them again. Do you know what I mean? So some of those clients might have just come to us once and then we don't see them again. Then we have clients that we see on a regular basis, some of them have been here for many, many years. So it's hard to say an exact number, but so those are 30 people who've never come to our office before.
I got it.
Doesn't mean that they're going to continue to come to our office and be regular clients that demand a lot of time. It could just be like a one-off conversation about their aging parent, or it could be a referral from the police department that we speak to once and then they don't want to talk to us anymore or they don't need any help. So it's hard to really gauge. I could let you know exactly how many active clients we have in our database.
Yeah, we might do that, but I guess what I'm interested in is sort of a workload measure, right? So if you take, maybe it's number of clients, but it'll also be just number of hours with clients, and just maybe tracking that, because you could say 30 new clients, and maybe that's relevant, but maybe a more relevant measure is just how many hours per week or on average per month are you guys spending serving clients in Darien, and how is that trending? Because you could actually be adding 30 new clients, but that number's flat because other clients required less assistance, something like that.
Right.
And I would help us get a sense for your workload and therefore your staffing needs and all of that stuff. But we can talk about it later, not urgent.
So on that tiny little chart with the really small numbers, it does track our minutes spent with clients between social workers or administrative or support staff. But I know it's really hard to read, and maybe it's
I can help you summarize this.
Too much information in that?
Well,
too many details?
Yeah, it's like that. But I think we could actually maybe transform this into sort of workload measurement.
Okay.
That would be helpful. Let me stare at this a little bit. I'll give you a call.
Yeah, you'll need your glasses because
Okay.
it's really small. But
right.
it does track quarter to quarter and compares the previous year.
Another question. I'm just wondering about your ARPA funds. And a little bit about the spending of the funds that were committed to the different categories, but also whether, now that this is seasoned a bit, whether you see a need to do any reallocation of those funds among the total monies that were kind of granted to human services, if you will, because a fair bit of that was for mental health, and there's a food insecurity grant, all of that. So if you add all that up, based on what you're seeing, do you see any need or maybe interest in considering a reallocation of those grants?
I think that's probably worthwhile. Do you agree, Kate?
Yeah.
Because we have to spend it or have it allocated by the end of 2024, right?
Yep.
I think what actually we need to do is reduce the allocations in some measure and put them to other uses.
Okay, maybe we'll have a
And I-
meeting for the next board of select, soon, to just come up with maybe a reallocation of that, or
So-
just think that.
As we go through the budget, one of the things Jen and I have talked about is identifying the ARPA projects that could possibly be reallocated, or we know could be reallocated because there are balances that are going to be unused, and also flagging capital projects that might be appropriate uses of those ARPA funds. To do it, we want to do it as part of the whole budget process.
Yeah, because it's a good point. Something that's capital or one-time related is going to be better. I would worry, for instance, about reallocating any of these funds to low-income heating energy assistance. That's totally worthy and worthwhile, but you do that once, then the following year, we don't have those
Yeah,
those
And that's
funds.
what we're seeing now since people.
I'd rather keep level funding to sort of ongoing programs and use these as one-time investments to improve efficiency
Right.
in your department, something like that.
And that's what we see now is in my report, I said that some of our clients have already run out of their energy assistance for the oil heated homes. So we have been using some of that ARPA emergency funds to give them a one-time fill of a tank. But we also, like you said, don't want them to expect that next year because we won't have the access to the ARPA funds. So with the emergency assistance funds, we've definitely been utilizing. I think when we first planned how to distribute the ARPA money, it was just kind of arbitrary, right? We didn't know exactly, not arbitrary, but like we didn't really know exactly what.
Yeah, we were still in the throes of it, and we didn't know, we didn't have a sense of how we were going to be able to, like with the food insecurity, how could we actually use that money?
Right.
And what was the actual need? And we did find some ways to use it
Mhm.
for our local people, but there's probably more than we could realistically use. And to your point, and Ally's, not making people dependent on that once we can't use that anymore.
Okay.
And also, I think it's also become more cumbersome from Jen's perspective and your perspective, right, in terms of the documentation. And also, originally, we thought we'd be able to support a lot of nonprofits, but it's actually much more cumbersome
It's
and
very
complicated.
cumbersome. And could be, if we gave somebody else a grant, we are responsible for what that sub-grantee does. And if they screw up, it's on us. So, and it requires a lot of tracking that we don't have the staffing to do.
Good. And then just one plug, I happen to participate in a filling in the blanks event where you pack some backpacks or packages of food for folks. That's a great organization. They have got no shortage of energy, at least to see their volunteers. I was tired from just watching people and all their energy, but a great organization. I'm glad you've got an affiliation with them. So,
And it's good we do it here because most of those larger cities and stuff, they do it in the schools, but there's a larger population of the children participating, and we knew that wouldn't fly in Darien, where there's a smaller amount of kids, and putting food in your backpack on a Friday would kind of, little red flag for the other kids, like, what's going on? Why are you getting food in your backpack? So that's why we do it here instead.
yeah, that's well done. Other questions for Ally?
Ellie, I have one quick question. The Survivor Day, the 12 people, were they the same people from last year, or are you reaching new people?
Some of them were from last year, and some of them were new.
Okay.
Yep. It really is a really moving day. It's intense and
Right.
kind of emotionally exhausting by the end of it, but they all come together, and it's really just like it's a support group that kind of flows on its own. And then they have, we had myself and Cynthia and another social worker from Laurel House there just to provide emotional support, and someone from AFSP. But they really bond, and people are at all different stages of their grieving. One woman was very fresh, that it probably wasn't appropriate, but like within like a week or two. But they really connect, and people exchange numbers, and it's really quite beautiful. You participated last year, Marcy,
Yeah,
and
unfortunately, I couldn't attend this year,
Yeah.
but it is meaningful.
and we don't pay for that. Norton Presbyterian Church donated the space, and then actually I think there's a small fee, and then it's AFSP. We coordinated it, and the people who came and stuff like I did, but there was no town funding because it's not just Darien residents; it's anyone in Fairfield County. Well, anyone in Connecticut, but
Yeah.
people down here.
Very worthwhile.
Yep. Other questions for Ally? Thank you. Okay, IT, George.
The big deal was just the transition of the software, the upgrade over at the police station. He might have more to say, the chief might have more to say, but we were fortunate to have their IT person, their new IT person, help with that transition. He's very fluent and knows the new software that was going in there, so that helped tremendously. Nothing more to add, but you guys have any questions?
Now, just to say, I appreciate some of the technology help in my office. That's great, and it's going to help with connectivity, but even just having a computer with a screen and a map. I had someone come by my office yesterday who had some printed maps that were lame, and we put the Google Maps up there, and we
That
could see.
worked out well.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
really does. For certain meetings when you need that, fabulous.
Yeah,
It's
Jeff being
very
able to have
helpful.
that big screen available, which
Well, the
was
cool
awesome.
thing is that the screen in my office is one of the big smart boards, It was free because
Yeah, it's
it
as
was
big as that
left,
guy.
like that, but it was left over from the old Oxbridge because they replaced those in the school there. And so this was leftover equipment and we just popped one in that office. Terrific.
Yeah, and it's
So,
great that you're using it the way you are.
every day. Thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't have any other questions. Any questions for George?
Thanks, guys.
One quick one, George. How often do we do a cybersecurity audit?
One was just done recently,
Right.
if I'm
Is
not
it like an
mistaken.
annual?
Yeah, I'm
or-
guessing it's annually.
Annual?
Generally, it's always annually because they always get me involved or they ask me a couple questions, Jeff and I.
And our, our cyber insurance people, they run testing on it on a regular basis, and they'll send us notifications that IT has to handle and respond back to them.
Yeah, so anytime we get any of those, Kate will let us know. We just do upgrades on the system or certain things we implement.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions I had in Jen's report. She'd marked that cyber insurance
Right.
was more than what was budgeted, anticipated. I've worried for a while that the market hasn't stabilized in terms of how that risk is priced, but anything in particular
We had to do that thing
driving
with the emails.
It was the email,
was,
the lack of two-factor authentication on email at the time.
okay, we have that now.
We
though.
have that now.
Yeah, it's in
Okay.
place.
Okay.
So will that then go
That
down?
should come down.
It should come down? Okay.
Other questions for George? Thank you, sir.
Thanks, guys.
Land use, Mr. Ginsburg.
Good morning. We'll start with the planning and zoning. I have nothing new or different to add to the report for planning and zoning.
I guess the only I mean, we talk all the time, but at a high level, do you see any adverse trends or positive trends, either in the department itself, across town, that you might want to highlight here? When we talk about developments all the time, we're pretty saturated, but if you just take a step back, is there anything kind of on your mind, either broadly across the state or in town, that might be a trend that you've been watching that we haven't discussed that might be interesting?
Certainly, we have our seasonal trends, which we see, which is usually what happens this time of year. Weather changes, and what I look at every year, by the spring, everyone's been cooped up in their homes. They want to expand. They've been getting bonuses or whatever, and their circumstances change. So what we usually see is a big push in the spring, which coincides also with swimming pools. This time of year, people are thinking about pools, but if you haven't started permitting or booking a pool guy, you might miss out because there's this very specific timing on that. So that's kind of the seasonal, annual, what we see in terms of redevelopment on the residential side. As you know, we see numerous, and I know you've met with a number of people about potential redevelopment of commercial properties, which we see, I think once it was phrased to me that each commercial building has pretty much a life of 50 years, and then the owner has to figure out what they want to do after 50 years, whether they want to upgrade, take it down, change it. So we do see a number of properties, commercial properties on the market. We do see a number of new tenants opening. In fact, Bird Code is expected to open tomorrow, according to the paper.
Okay.
Federal Realty has a number of new tenants over in Darien Commons that will be opening over the next month or two. They're not fully built out yet. So always some tenant changes throughout the community. There's a handful of vacant spaces, not too many.
Okay. Building department?
Building, of course, the big news was the loss of Lisa Mason, who was the office administrator. She passed away in December. Very sad news for the department, the town in general. And we are looking for her replacement.
Yeah. Yes, very sad. Her service is this Saturday?
Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of questions. So in addition to, I guess, Bertco, what's next in terms of restaurants opening? Is there anything coming up in the next month or so that just for residents to be aware of? And to go spend money?
In the Darien Commons project, we expect to see Cosmos Bagels, Bear Burger, Chip City, if it hasn't opened already, Sparkalicious. So there's 4 tenants in Darien Commons. Molto, looking at February, March, which is the corner of Dickinson Road and Boston Post Road. Combination convenience store, coffee shop. So those are moving right along. Prime Steakhouse, which is where the Melting Pot used to be, will be opening in the spring as well. And those are a handful I can think of off the top of my head. I'm sure there'll be others that crop along that.
So just helping us break New Year's resolutions, these are perfect kind of venues to do that. Okay. And then any update on just timing for the Heights Crossing development? It was great to see all the steel going up over by Palmer's. That's terrific.
That is moving along. I think they're looking to finish next year sometime. Of course, too early to give exact dates, but of course, the only tenant announced at this time is the Goddard School, which was approved by Planning and Zoning a few years ago. I know John Riccaro of the V20 Group has talked about 3 different restaurants. One is likely some kind of quick service, which will play nicely and complement the train station across the street. So possibly coffee, donut type, but no tenants have been announced other than the Goddard School.
Okay. Questions for Jeremy?
Yes, Monica?
The Goddard School, is the size the same? Have they changed?
That's correct. There's no change from what was originally approved in terms of the school, and they're excited to be open next year. Very excited.
And then Jeremy, you pointed out the drop in permits in October, the lowest in 39 years, which, so somehow that popped out at you. Is that just a one-off?
I think part of it is seasonal. We'll see if that kind of comes back. November, December were fairly average. January seems to be down a little. We'll see if that's a trend or if that's just a one-off type thing.
Right, nothing yet. So just so John can get on his calendar all the places he's going to go break all those January resolutions, what is Sparkalicious?
From what I understand, I've never been to a Sparkalicious. There are a number of others in the country. I guess it's designed for girls' birthday parties.
Oh.
So I'll have to Google it myself.
Like an art place, maybe, or something?
Yeah.
So my presence there is fine, but just suspicious.
Certainly you'll be there with the scissors for the grand opening. But I'm curious myself. I'll have to go online and find out more about it. It's a good question.
No, for years, my daughter and I have gone to hands-on pottery.
That's
So we have a painting session where it's daddy-daughter. She's 24, we still do it, and it's been years. And I've got this collection of painted ceramic all over my house. So this could be another place we could take her.
Add to it.
Add to it, exactly. Minimizes the suspicion if she's with me. Okay. Other questions for Jeremy?
Thank you all.
Thank you, appreciate it. So Pam is not with us. Parks and Rec? Or
I don't see Jim here either.
don't see your Jim either. Okay. Chief?
Good morning, everybody. Don Anderson, your trusty chief of police. While it's front of mind, let me just say that, as George said, the changeover for our RMS CAD system is ongoing. That's a voluminous undertaking, going from one CAD RMS system to another. Our staff has been doing yeoman's work getting that changed over. It is the system that most of the state of Connecticut police departments use, so it's going to be a little bumpy, but we'll get through it.
Can you highlight just some of the differences between sort of the existing system and what you get with this new system?
While our existing CAD RMS vendor, Central Square, we were through several permutations of that company. We started with Vision, then it went to TriTech, and then it went to Central Square. The functionality of the programs are largely the same, but the way that they catalog data is a little bit different. Our CAD system is what the dispatchers use when an incoming call comes in. That's how they log it in. Before, it was 2 systems under Central Square. You had CAD, computer-aided dispatch, and you had RMS, records management system. In this case, the product is it's one product. It's not separate. So there are some economies there when you're looking for information and trying to cull out information. The reporting system's a little bit different, right? There's data we have to put in for NIBRs and for FBI requirements. It's a little bit different. So by and large, we'll get down to the functionality fairly quickly, maybe much to the chagrin of the motoring public. Officers can now, we'll be able to very soon issue e-citation tickets right from the car. They're printed there. They're not handwritten anymore. The data is automatically cataloged in the system, so there's some savings there as well. The racial profiling tickets that we have to give out to folks, not tickets, but the forms that every time we stop you, we're required to give you this state of Connecticut form saying here's your rights under the law. If you want to lodge a complaint, this is how it's done. That's all part and parcel of this electronic ticket now. That's a little bit economies there. So it's a big undertaking, but we're making pretty good headway, and I think we'll come out better on the other end. On the IT front too, before I forget, just I want to remind the Board of Selectmen again, if you do get an email from me saying that I'm in a meeting and I need you to help me to buy gift cards, most likely that is not me, and anyone who's watching on TV, if you get any of those emails, that's obviously a scam. One other thing that I'd like to touch on too from EMS, the police department has received our annual first responder certificate once again. And for the folks who don't know, this is how Post 53 is allowed to operate. It dovetails with the police department, that we're the first responders. In the Police Officer Safety and Training Council curriculum, in the black and white 5-channel TV days when I was there, you came out as a fully fledged medical response technician, an MRT. Then it went to, they did the training and you came out, but you had to take national boards. Police Officer Standard and Training Council now has taken away the emergency medical training altogether. So emergency medical training will be on us exclusively. When recruits come out of the police academy, they will no longer have any emergency medical training. So that's just something we're going to have to deal with as we move forward. With that, I'm always happy to take questions and discuss police department operations.
Just one question. I know there's the female locker room renovations and all that's started or about to start. Is there an anticipated completion for that work?
They want to get in and out once the first hammer swings within 90 days. I'm hoping it goes quicker than that. The temporary female locker room is up and running in our processing bay, so that we do have the space for our female officers once they actually start putting the hammers in the wall.
Got it. Okay. Other questions for the chief?
Hey, Chief, the police academy, the citizens, how many hours does that entail? Do you know?
I think that was 7 nights, and that's about 2 hours a night.
2 hours a night?
Very well received. I was there for the closing night the other night, and the residents were very, very happy with the instruction that they received. As you hear me say time and time again, an educated consumer is our best customer. And it is eye-opening for civilians when they come in to see what the police do, why we do it, and a lot of times why we don't do what people think we do. So it was, I think we had about 12 or 13 people in there. We'll run it again, for sure.
When's your next one?
They don't have it scheduled yet. Probably I would think it probably would be in the fall at this point. Scheduling this one over the holidays was a little bit problematic with people with having other things to do. During the summer, I think it would be the same kind of thing. So probably early fall is what we were looking at.
So you try to do it like twice a year?
Yeah.
Just where do you advertise kind of programs that you guys are having? Is it on your website? People go in and...
Yeah, the Citizen Police Academy would be on our own website.
Okay.
I believe Marley had it on the town's website as well.
And same with the rape class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions for the chief? Thank you, sir.
I will have to take my leave here in a few minutes. I am on a statewide legislative task force. I have a Zoom meeting at 10, so I don't want anybody to think that I'm gonna come up to, I'm not interested in what they need to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ed's not here for Public Works, but Darren is here. Thank you for coming, sir.
Morning, everybody. Darren Ostafine standing in for Ed Gentile, who would love to be here. He's attending a 3-day wastewater conference in Boston, so you have at least one viewer from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. A couple of highlights. Since the writing of this report, we did have some winter storms. We moved on from autumn leaf pickup to Christmas tree pickup. 56 days until spring. Our DPW garage floor has been completed. We are now functional. We have all of our trucks stored inside the building where they should be. There's still trade work going on. We have plumber, garage doors need to be installed, stuff like that, but we are functional. It passed all of its tests, so that was good news. I think that's about it. Those are the highlights, if you have any other questions.
Yeah, so the storms this week, and any difficulty or fairly run-of-the-mill?
You know, it's really weird. Both storms were not substantial at all. a couple of inches. But the first one started at 7 o'clock in the morning and didn't end until 11 o'clock at night, followed by a period of absolutely no chance of getting above freezing. So I'd rather have 8 inches of snow and then the next day the sun comes out, which happens sometimes, and also at night, because we own the night, we have no issues, people are where they should be, we get to do our job. This storm, the last two actually, there was a lot of daytime activity, but thankfully wasn't substantial.
Good. I'm kind of curious about the Roten Avenue and Ledge Road kind of intersection, and a lot of people are backed up on that to get that turn onto Roten Avenue there. And for the improvements there, is there enough room for a left turn lane or to put all that in?
There is. The plan is to have a right turn lane to alleviate that backup.
Okay.
And it's hard to believe, but Scooters is owned by the state somehow. They lease that land from the state.
You mean Jake's?
Jake's. Oh, yeah, Jake's.
Maybe that might be something that Jeremy and Ed
Okay.
and I have
Yeah.
a meeting, update you, so you.
Okay, all right, we'll go.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It is very complicated. Okay.
Yeah, they're working through the lease stuff and
Okay.
over my head.
All right, I know we're talking about Great Island later today, so I won't go through all that. Any just general update on our two flooding projects in terms of where the design work stands, just as a public service?
Talking about Salt Box.
Salt Box and Tilly.
And Grove Street?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Grove Street, we just had a meeting. They came up with a route on how to get to the Goodwise River from Tilly Pond. And of course, that one has private partnership. There are public-private partnership on that project. So our meetings always involve the key stakeholders, ongoing. Salt Box Lane and that area. We have a meeting scheduled with the folks of Seagate Road, which is where that water is going to discharge. We are working on getting easements and title searches for all the properties where we're going to have to go from one road to another, to Du Bois, to Coach Lamp, to Salt Box East. But ongoing, we continue to meet monthly, bi-weekly sometimes.
There's a very long discussion about municipal waste, the transfer station, contracts coming up, and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to boil that down to, or do you have, I mean, it feels kind of normal, and these are just trends that have gone over a long period of time. If you were to
Okay,
boil it down to what you're worried about or anything you want to discuss, is there anything out of that that you'd like to focus on?
Worried, I would say focused on June 30th, 2024. That's when our contract expires. The history is we spent over 20 years with the quasi-governmental agency, CRRA, and in 2008 we decided to go get out of that, and we went with a local consortium of spearheaded by the city of Norwalk, where we entered into a contract, the current contract that we're in, which worked out very well for everybody involved. As far as trends, it is very, very difficult to look at a graph and understand why things happen the way they happen. I can tell you that holistically, or from 10,000 feet, there's one burn plant in Bridgeport, the waste to energy facility, and that's where our waste ends up going. The alternatives are not good. It gets on a train and it goes to Ohio or Pennsylvania or upstate New York or something like that. Of course, all of those things and market forces are out of our control. So the best we can do is lock something down before June 30th, and that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Last question, any timing update on completion of the Darien Railroad Station platform and project? I know that's a state of Connecticut project, but have they given you a sense of when that work's finished?
No, I'm going to say 2025. That's
Okay.
That's my rough estimate guess.
Okay. Other questions for Darren?
And Darren, I have two. So we raised the fee to our haulers, and you would think that maybe we would have a little bit of drop off, but we raised our fees like 25%, and they've increased the amount that they drop off by the same. So
Exactly to my point.
Okay, so that's just
Exactly
going
to my point.
Just
You just illustrated what I was trying to say earlier. And the best thing I can tell you in response to that is, yes, we raised our fee, but so did everybody else and
Okay.
more.
That's what I wondered.
And Darien is attractive. You won't see a line at our facility. It's kept clean. It's easy in and out. It's near the highway. We have a lot of things going for us that makes us attractive, and people are willing to pay more. And not only that, we aren't necessarily more than other people. So everything went up.
Right. My other question is, we went from the Q alerts to this click fix, and there's like a really big difference between the number of calls or number of complaints lodged with the Q alert. Is this just a little bit of a learning curve here on this one?
That's my guess.
Okay.
I don't know, but I think something got lost in the translation. It's a very different system, and when you go in from the outside, the public is asked to sign in, give your email, become a member, and I don't know if that's putting people off or, as you say, there's a learning curve, but that's what I attribute the difference in numbers to.
Yeah. Have you seen an uptick in people just calling you directly?
I don't get those calls, thankfully, but
Those would still be entered into the system, though, by the staff.
That-
If a person called in
Okay.
to Cindy or Penny, they would enter it into See Click Fix.
Got it. Okay.
That's absolutely true. We'll find out because we just posted, I believe we posted our spring pickup because in the middle of January, people are thinking about how to get rid of some of the stuff they have in their garage. So we had to redo the entire approach, the instructions that we posted on our website. So we'll see how that works.
Okay.
Other questions for Darren?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Kara, Registrar of Voters.
Hi, good morning. I'm Kara Gately, one of the registrars of voters. Susan, unfortunately, is on vacation, so she's unable to join us. We got approval, well, the RTM last night voted to not designate a second location for early voting, which means 2 Renshaw Road, this building, is the location and will be the sole location for early voting in Darien. We'll be certifying that to the Secretary of State in due course. We are currently recruiting for the presidential preference primary, both for the early voting period and for that day, April 2nd. The Secretary of State has certified 4 candidates for the Republican side and 4 on the Democratic side. Those individuals have till March 5th, I believe, to withdraw their names. Otherwise, they are on the ballot for the presidential preference primary. Petitions are currently available for individuals who were not placed on the ballot by the Secretary of State. We have not had anybody come into our office and ask for a petition, but they're available if people want to be on the ballot for the presidential preference primary on April 2nd. I'll be working with and going to my friends in the land use department. Secretary of State has informed us that the new EMS system, which is the elections management system for the state, lots of data on turnout, offices, poll locations, things like that. So it's not the system that's voter specific, it's more the election specific data. That is moving to a GIS model away from addresses, and so is CVRS, which is the voter specific system. So we'll have to work with, I think, our land use folks who have more knowledge in GIS, because the towns, the municipalities are responsible for getting that data ready for the vendor that's been hired for the new systems. We were informed, sadly, that new tabulators, while they're out to bid, will not be acquired in time by the state for this year's elections, which makes us a bit nervous. We had more tabulator fails in the last election in the absentee voter world that I was moderating, so it was not fun for me, my first time moderating absentee ballots, to have 2 machines fail. So that's 3 machines that have failed in the last 2 elections, primary and elections. So we'll be working with LHS, who is the vendor that services, the only one left that services all the tabulators, to make sure they are serviced, that we have parts, we have extra parts, and that we're all set and ready to go. So that's pretty much the highlights. We'll be adding a functionality to our webpage to allow for interactive interest if people want to be a poll worker. So if you know anybody who wants to work early voting, we're currently looking for people and recruiting and training those people for early voting. Higher skill set than sort of, day of poll workers, because they'll have CVRS access. So a lot more training and a lot, sort of different responsibilities than just working at the poll sites. So those are the highlights. Yeah, any questions?
Super condensed and dense report, thank you, this is great. How are you finding the required registrar certification courses? Helpful, useful?
Yeah, so it was a little frustrating. I had started it when the UConn Technology School was running it, and then they stopped, and then Public Policy School took it over. So I'm retaking all but it's very interesting. A lot of cases and SEEC cases and specifics on, what the standards are for residency or voter identification, things like that. So it's interesting, and then I'm looking forward to taking the test, I think, in 3 months.
Terrific. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Questions for Carol?
Just a quick question, because I'm curious. What qualifies the difference between an active registered voter and an inactive registered voter?
Whether they've voted.
And how long? 1 year?
I think it's 3 years, and then they go inactive. We don't take them off for another couple years. But if they sign a petition, if they do anything, they go back on active. And we contact them. So we do canvass every year. We reach out to them. We mail them things. We, try to contact them to find out what's going on. Where are they? And then if we hear back from them, great, they're active. If we don't hear back from them, they stay inactive.
And if you're inactive and you show up to vote at the polls, you're not on the list, or you will still on the list?
You're not on the list, but then you can just fill out a form or go to same-day registration and re-register, or just fill out one of the registration cards and then you're reactive.
Okay.
People won't be turned away.
Okay.
There's solutions for everything.
Okay. Other questions?
No, thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Carol. Beth Paris, Senior Center.
Good morning, everyone. I have really nothing to add to the report. We are already planning for a very active spring and hoping the weather stays with us so we don't have to cancel all the wonderful programs we have planned for the winter months. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
No, just say I'm a huge fan of your lunch events, holiday events that you had over Thanksgiving and over Christmas. Those were terrific, and all of the miraculous things you did to kind of keep them on track so that they actually happen. So thank you. They were great. I know we didn't have a Parks and Rec report today, but just the occurrence of these kind of community events. You had the lunches there at the senior center, we had the holiday gathering at Tilly Pond in December, and then we had the Rocktoberfest in the fall. Those community events are great. They were very well attended. Everybody seemed to have a good time. I would just encourage you to not overdo it, but these community events absolutely are seal of approval. So the more of those things you can have, it really does help with the community building, bringing people together. I certainly went to Rocktoberfest, and we were there. Sarah, you were there with me, and you came as well. Those are fantastic. And I know that's Parks and Rec, but certainly for the senior center, the stuff that you do sort of internally for those folks, great. So anything more you can do like that, I will certainly be there if I can.
We are going to have a focus group brainstorming session in February, complete with refreshments, because that's important. We have seen that folks are asking us for more fun things to do. They love the health and wellness presentations. We're going to be doing Fairfield U Matter of Balance with the graduate students, again, of nursing. We just got a reach out from Sacred Heart for the occupational therapy program. We're going to have 2 graduate students from May on through July that we have programs that we're assigning for them to do that actually are fun programs, but will meet the requirements of what their field experience is. But also that we had Edgar Allan Poe come in fully dressed and in costume and in character the entire time. They're asking for more of that. So it's, we're doing our, does he dress as somebody?
He's really good.
I am, look, I
you don't have to tell me now.
I'm happy to embarrass the town further than I already currently do, so just let me know.
Well, because the great thing was from this gentleman, we ended up getting a whole nother pool of actors and actresses that come in as other folks. So we're going to be doing that again. And also just making sure that we're really tapping what the needs of all of our folks are. So we're going to try to do a couple of focus groups during the year too for their ideas. Believe me, they do come in. I have an open door policy. I should have no door because people just come in whenever they want anyway. But
if you do one of those focus groups, invite me. I'd like to come just listen
I
and
will
hear
let you know
people
what
talk
it
about.
is. And and so we get great ideas from that too, but we're really benefiting from our full-time program specialist, Caitlin Stote, and now our activity assistant. It's hard to believe that just one part-time person is making the difference that he's making, but he really is, and he can teach classes as well. He's going to start his first beginner chess class in another month, so I appreciate even that. So, yeah.
Seriously though, if you have actors or readers, anybody wearing a ridiculous costume that can't show up for whatever reason, I'm right here. Just call
All right, well, if somebody suggests a character, we're going to let you know.
Let me know.
Anyone
Okay,
else?
terrific. Other questions?
Hey, Beth, I have a quick one. So appreciate everything the Darien Foundation does for town. I see that you're looking into exploring tech needs. What are your tech needs?
Yes, where's George? Hey, George. Yesterday, we had George and Jeff in the center. We're looking at, for our cafe extension, putting in a screen with a projection camera, and then one in the cafe right to face the stage, so that we can use those for speaker events, but also for, and to your pleasure, some fun events too, that we can actually have full screen usage right in that room. We're also looking for in our computer room, because that's where we're teaching. We actually just had an incredible state worker come down who's the director of digital coordination for the state for older folks and for people with disabilities, do an iPhone class, and thanks to Marley, wherever up there, advertising for us too. We got 38 people who came in with iPhones to learn how to do the accessibility portion of their iPhone. So moving forward, we know we're going to be doing more virtual programming or in-center and homebound programming too. So that's what we're looking at this point.
Other questions for Beth? Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Beth. Ms. Larkins.
So good morning. As you see from the December numbers, we are a bit behind. I updated for everything that we had received yesterday. And if I assumed what escrow I would have received at the same point last year, I'd be right on target. And what I'm seeing in this collection cycle is the banks are really hanging on to the money. CoreLogic came in with their file in December, the last Friday in December. They've never done that before. I've also seen some banks have changed from one escrow processor to another. The money used to come in December, now it's coming in January. So I'm going to have a much better feel at the end of this collection month exactly what's going on. But that's what I'm seeing that's kind of skewing my numbers through December and even through this part of the month. So anyway, stay tuned. The only other thing that I want to make sure I mention is every year we put a file up on the website which includes the tax payment history for the previous calendar year that people find very useful when they're filling out their state and federal income taxes. And with the new website, it's a different process to get to the particular file. So you go on to the DarieNCT.gov website, and then on the top taskbar, you click on How Do I? And then the next screen, you click on Find, and then tax payment history is the last option under that subcategory. You can search by name, address, list number, the information's there. Any questions, contact the tax office. We're happy to help anybody. And I'll make sure Marley gets that information for the next newsletter.
Great.
So I don't know if there are any questions.
I don't have to come, Marcy.
Well, just curiosity, the motor vehicle billing looks like it went up pretty substantially, $100,000. Is that because there's more cars in town, or is it because people's cars are much more valuable?
It could be a
You got a new car?
combination.
Everybody just got a new car?
It could be a combination.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's substantial.
And it's hard to predict too, because we have to budget so far in advance of when these cars are registered, so it's really just a guesstimate.
Kathy, we could put a button on the main page if you think there's a time period where it'd be easy, better for people to find their tax history.
Yes.
If you want us to have something that pops up on the main page, we could
When you say
do
main,
that.
you mean the tax collectors page or
Yeah,
the home
no,
page?
on the home page.
Okay, yeah, that
So-
probably would be a great idea.
Okay, so talk to me afterwards.
Yes, I will.
Other questions?
Hey Kathy, what's the convenience fee, and has it changed over time?
Okay, so the convenience fee is, we use a third-party vendor to handle our online payments, which, you can pay with an electronic check, debit card, credit card. That third party gets charged by, credit card exchange fees, people who have credit cards that have bonus points or whatever. There are all these fees that go along with paying with a credit card, debit card. So those convenience fees go to that third-party vendor, and they basically settle with all the individual organizations. Our fees have been lowered since we went online, and they are, as far as I know, pretty much the lowest that I can get. But I'm always, talking to different vendors to see if there's any other options that would be lower for our taxpayers.
Right, because I see that keeps creeping up, the number of people that take advantage of
Yes.
that. So there must be a break point where, well, I guess because we're not paying it. So
We're not paying, so
but
we
you're
don't have to
still-
worry about
yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
you know what, honestly, the bulk of those online payments are the electronic checks that are $1.50.
Okay.
And you can put your house taxes, all your cars on one check. And you figure a stamp is what, 50, 55 cents? So,
Wow, that is interesting. I did not know you could put it all on one
Yes,
check.
yes.
I send a separate for whatever.
Yeah, I
Good to know.
thought that as well, and I
Yeah.
happened to be down there, and they mentioned I
Yeah,
could put it all
it's
in one
great.
check. That's
Yeah,
great.
that should be good, yeah, that's good information.
Okay.
Other questions for Kathy?
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Last, but absolutely not least, Alicia. Oh,
not
no,
here.
she's not here.
Here.
She's not here.
I thought maybe you forgot your alphabet.
No.
Alicia reporting on behalf of the Youth Commission. We opened summer camp counselor applications yesterday. There's always a risk to open so early because you think you might be getting the best, and then a little later you really get the best. But I have a couple counselors who worked last summer who have recommended some of their friends, and I take that into consideration because they really know the job. I'm in the process of building the summer camp schedules currently. It may seem early, but you know, the trips are a huge draw, and I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Anyway, and we are secured with Tokenique as the location for the 3 grade level programs, and I received approval from the depot to run the middle school program out of the depot again this year, which is great. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great report, tons of programs. I don't have any questions. Monica, anybody else?
Is the change in location for the schools because of the construction that can be happening?
HHR.
Okay.
Yep.
And Oxbridge wasn't an option?
The Board of Ed is using Oxbridge for their programs.
Okay.
Extended school year,
Okay.
et cetera.
Got it.
So it's going to be tight.
Yeah.
We made it work last year. We had 2.5 programs at Hinley. We had less space. I'm confident this year it's going to move smoothly. But there are, you know, I try my hardest to make certain that the older camp is off-site when the younger 2 camps are on-site and vice versa. So it's, you know, it's a little bit of a game of Tetris, but I love it.
Okay, that wraps up our department head meeting. I appreciate everybody's efforts. These are more streamlined than last time. I'm going to discuss some ideas at the next Board of Selectmen meeting about further doing that, just to make your lives easier. But I really appreciate the great discussions today. Enjoy the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan, please go first.
Okay, I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Tuesday, January 23rd. It is 10:10 a.m. Thanks for coming. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, First Selectmen's report. The budget meetings with the department heads are finished, and we are going to begin our budget workshop starting next Monday, the 29th, so stay tuned for that. Kate, when do the budget books, or when are those available for the selectmen?
No, you guys keep taking away my report.
Oh, sorry.
They should be available. We should be sending an email out sometime later today that with all the access information.
Okay.
I just want to write up some notes for you all on certain things to look for.
Okay. On Wednesday, January 10th, I had a meeting with Nancy Coughlin, who's the director of Person to Person, learn more about that organization. Really terrific. They do a lot of work to coordinate with other agencies in neighboring towns, and so if you've got anything you can do to support that, either through a contribution or a contribution of clothes, that sort of thing, they do accept those, and their offices are over at St. Luke's Church over on the Post Road. Interesting, on the 11th, I had a discussion with some members of West Cog, and the topic was this noise abatement feasibility study. So West Cog is doing that to help with potential noise abatement along the New Canaan train line. So the issue there is that spur line goes up to New Canaan, and there are 3 stops there that are in Darien, and some of the questions that residents have posed is around the train horns that sound. So the rules are that the train has to sound its horn 4 times as it comes up to those stations. And for the residents, that goes on really a lot over the course of the day, and at one level you could get used to it. At another level, they've wondered whether something could be done differently. And so the purpose of this study was to test feasibility of what they call quiet zones. So a quiet zone is a half-mile sort of section of the track where they would not sound these horns. So the issue is quiet zones around crossing gates. So those are, as I said, 3 of them in Darien. In order to qualify to have a quiet zone run across one of those gates, you have to have 3 things. You have to get gates and lights and bells, and so it has to be a system like that. You have to have power out warning, so if there's no power there, that there's some kind of warning that's displayed that says the power is not operational. And the one that's tricky is what's called CWT, which is constant warning time. So the way this works is if you've got a slower train, the train could be approaching fairly slowly and then the gates would come down. But if you've got a fast train, those gates will come down a lot sooner. So in other words, there's the same amount of warning time you have when the gates drop as to when the train passes, irrespective of whether it's fast or slow. That's a requirement for any crossing gate where you're going to have a quiet zone. So the problem is we don't have those on the New Canaan line because these are just all slow trains. It goes up the spur line and comes back, and they're not very fast, so why make the investment? But in order to have a quiet zone, we have to get a waiver of those requirements. So the study group has kind of finalized their work, and they're going to work with the Federal Railroad Commission, I believe is the right entity, to try to get an exception where we could create these quiet zones. And if they can get approval, there are some investments that are required, and we'll get more details on that. But just for the residents who are affected by that, they are working on it. We're making progress, and I think there's a chance that this could work, but a lot's contingent on their willingness to grant this waiver. So more to come on that. What else do I want to talk about? I gave the State of the Town address a couple more times in the past week or so. I was invited by the Commission on Aging, the chairman there, Joe Pankowski, to give that speech, and then I also did it with the Chamber of Commerce last week, so appreciate all those folks. I tried to add new information to what I spoke about in December, but it's great to get out in small groups and not just talk about what's going on with the town, but to get their questions. So I appreciated everybody coming to listen, and also for the input that they provided with Q&A. It's really great to engage with folks like that, so thank you. I had a meeting yesterday with Jonathan Smalls. He is the Connecticut District 4 coordinator for the office of Senator Chris Murphy. And first time I've had a chance to speak with someone from the senator's office. I've never met the senator, but had a chance to talk with his representative, John, and he's terrific, great, engaging conversation. So I'm hopeful that he'll come back and stop by and see us when he is in town next. Last thing I want to talk about is ice skating. So we've had a spell of cold weather. I think we went a week without the temperatures going above freezing, and so a lot of folks came out to go skating on certainly Tilly Pond, and I think on Gorham's too, although I did not get over to see that. There's a question as to whether that was safe or not. So the standards are you've got to have at least 6 inches of ice if it's cloudy, like it was, the water in the ice is cloudy like it is over on Tilly Pond, or you have to have a 4-inch ice sheet if it is clear ice. At Tilly Pond, they did some core tests yesterday, and the thickness of that ice, even after all this cold weather, was only 3.5 inches. And so that does not meet our safety standards and the safety standards for our insurance companies. And so that's why we've not posted that skating is available. We do have one sign that is put up at Tilly Pond that I went and looked at. It's bolted to one of the trees that says skating's not permitted unless we've tested the ice, and in this case they did test it, and it does not meet those thickness standards. And so we would ask folks to not skate on Tilly or on Gorham's Pond for that reason, that it's not safe and doesn't meet our insurance standards for the town. We're going to try to get a little bit more information about all that. I know that's one of the cool things about living in New England is to go skating on a pond like that, but it does need to be done safely. So just the official statement is the ponds are not safe for ice skating right now, and so please do not do that. We will get a more active communication program to let you know when we have the next cold weather round that when such activities are safe. So just wanted to do a little public service announcement on that. That's all I've got for the first Selectmen's report. Kate.
Just adding on to your ice skating, if somebody skates when it is unsafe, they put themselves at risk, but they also put our first responders at risk.
Yep.
So I would reiterate what you've said, and please don't skate there if the signs say no skating.
Kate, to that, I did drive by Gorham's, and there were at least 12 cars there.
Gorham's is not ours.
Okay, so does anybody test there?
So it's all privately owned, is my understanding, and it's owned by the residents that abut that area. And so, to my knowledge, Parks and Rec has not done testing of Gorham's Pond, but that's a that's even bigger than Tilly Pond in
Right,
terms
there
of
were,
surface
yeah, a lot
area
of
and
kids.
probably more precarious.
A lot of
So
kids.
not safe and not good to be out there.
And I think it has more free-flowing water.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we as a town should not test because we don't have any we don't have any liability now. If we were to start testing there,
We
we
would,
would be,
yep.
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
So, obviously, we've been working on the budget. And as I said earlier, we should have that open for you all this afternoon. And mentioned in the department head meeting, the dispatchers are carving out from the town hall union. So we will be having 2 contracts to negotiate this spring, well, starting now, actually. So I'm not quite sure what our trajectory is going to be on that, if we'll do simultaneously, one then the other. That still has to be worked out, but it will be a little bit of a challenge to do 2 at once, but we'll get it done.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Board liaison reports, Marcy.
Mental Health Task Force was supposed to meet last Tuesday, and we rescheduled because of the weather, so we will be meeting on February 13th. Oxford Building Committee has not met since our last meeting. Slide was removed, grading has started, and the ground froze, so it's still a little rough over there, but they're working on it. And that's pretty much it for now. I look forward to the Mental Health Task Force meeting in 2 weeks
Okay.
to kind of look to see what's happening in the spring.
I know Mr. Burke couldn't be with us today. Sarah Newman had to leave, and she only wanted to say that the HHR committee is going to meet this coming Wednesday following the RTM approval last night of the bonding resolutions. And so that starts a 10-day period where after the expiration of which they can actually put out the bids for or sign those the contracts with the main contractor for all the bids that they secured. So that's very good news, and that project can now continue to move forward. So
just to be clear, the 10-day period is a time period during which people could take out a petition to have a referendum to overturn the RTM decision.
Okay.
So assuming no petitions are filed, they're good to go at the end of those 10 days.
If you get a petition, could you please call me?
I'm not going to get it. The town clerk will get it.
Okay. Could you
And
ask
yeah, we will definitely let you know. And it's a high bar to overturn a decision of the RTM. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's good. Monica, I know we're going to talk about Great Island here in a minute. Anything?
Just, that's not something we're going to discuss. We continue to focus on the work on 23A, expanding the entrance. And we met with ARB on the 16th, and they reviewed and made some recommendations to the gates at the front that we then presented on the following day to the committee, and they were in support of the revised entry.
Are they trying to preserve that look?
Right, and they came up with, I think, a really, really attractive alternative, which, as I said, the committee supported. So there is an EPC meeting tomorrow night, and the next meeting on this will be the public hearing at Town Hall on the 30th, and I would encourage anyone that's interested in this project, well, anyone that's interested in Great Island, but specifically the entryway to attend that meeting and share your thoughts.
Terrific. Thank you. Public comments?
I did receive an email late Thursday that I forwarded to all of you this morning from a resident who is opposed to the request to lease 5 parking spaces to the bodega. So you all have the full comments in your email this morning.
Okay, thank you.
Has planning and zoning met on that yet?
No, I haven't. There's a whole list of things that we have to do, and the Goose did reach out over the weekend, so I haven't had a chance to read through their email yet. But they did also reach out, and I've notified the town attorney that we're looking for a draft lease, but we'll have to go through P&Z, ARB, RTM.
Yeah, just so everybody knows, I recognize that there are concerns about parking generally. We're taking a close look at parking in kind of that part of our world. So it extends from the the train lots kind of over to Mechanic Street and then over through the developments with Corbin Drive, and then, of course, the sports shop. So just all that kind of downtown parking. We're about to have several meetings just to talk about that and just take another close look at that and make sure we're clear about what parking is available, who controls it and when it's available, what's permitted and what's not. And we're just going to take a very fresh look at all that. My sense from sort of preliminary discussions is that we actually do have a lot of parking. Some of it is not right next to where you want to be, but it is certainly viable parking, and my sense is that when you look at it holistically, even with the parking that's controlled by certain businesses and others, that in the scheme of things, our parking actually looks okay. You may have to walk for a few minutes to get to exactly where you want. There's not parking by every single door of every place, but we're not in bad shape on parking. But you know what? We need to take a look at it closely, and we need to have a good public report on that, and I'll commit to doing that. So, but my general view is not to worry, it looks okay. New business. First item, to discuss and take action on a request to amend the charge for the Great Island Advisory Committee.
So I included in your packet some draft language that I created based on what I was told you were looking for. So that would be item 3 under the charge, which authorizes the committee to identify, interview, and recommend to the board such professionals and consultants deemed necessary to advise the committee on its charge. Added to it, including but not limited to such professionals as consultants for the preparation of a master plan, including the terms under which they will serve the committee. So don't know if I've captured what you were looking for.
Yeah, I kind of like that language because even though it's just a small change to the charter, it really does encapsulate the committee's next step, which is to say, okay, now that we have this and we've gotten through a tremendous amount of fairly complicated negotiations and accompanying paperwork, thanks to Monica and Jim Palin and a ton of other people, now starts the process of sort of what do we do next? And consistent with other building committees for big projects we've had in the past, we do work sort of alongside and in parallel with real professionals who've done this before, and that's the effort that Monica's chartered, which is to identify those professionals, and that started with Dan Kalkowski, who's here today, and other members of the committee to develop an RFQ process. So having that language, empowering the committee to do just that, really is the catalyst that allows us to launch that effort, which once it concludes, we'll have a strategy and hopefully plans being implemented to get Great Island where we need it to be. So I'm satisfied with that language addition.
I have nothing to add. You said
Yeah.
it perfectly. We have, I will just reiterate what John said, that we have individuals on the committee that have expertise in this area. So we are very fortunate for that.
Yeah, because some folks have wondered whether the current committee would be either restructured or members would be changed out, given that we're kind of going to the next phase of work. Having sat in on all these committee meetings, as Monica has as well, I can confirm to you that the 4 citizens we have on the committee are towering experts in all this stuff, and we have exactly the right people to help us with this next phase. So anyway, I'm satisfied with that. Do we need a vote on that charter?
Yep.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve the amended charge for the Great Island Advisory Committee? Monica moves, Marcy seconds, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, discuss and take action on proposed Great Island pedestrian access guidelines. Monica.
So the committee met last week to discuss plans to provide pedestrian access to Great Island, and this will be before the construction starts this April. And from the inception, the committee has been fielding inquiries, questions from our community on when we will be allowing people on it. So we know that it's a new asset for the town, and people are really excited to view it. And we also think that people getting onto the island will have a better sense of the possibilities that are available there. They'll just be more informed going forward. So we considered many things, including safety of visitors, privacy and respect for the tenants living there and using the island, protection of sensitive environmental areas and wildlife, and also the current lack of amenities such as parking and restroom facilities. We came up with a set of rules for the visitors to the island that was created by committee members and was approved by the committee. So the committee unanimously supported this early access and the rules and regulations for it. So I think local residents have expressed concerns about added traffic on the roads and possible parking issues on local streets by visitors to the island. The committee will be encouraging people to park at Pear Tree and walk down, and we will be meeting with the police and Public Works to discuss signage and other parking restrictions that will be implemented to make this happen.
That's good. 2 other points that I would make. I know a few folks have reached out to us with concerns about parking, and I get that. Right now, the best option for parking for the pedestrian access we're trying to make available is the parking lot at Pear Tree Point, and that's really the best thing to do right now. We do not have parking kind of closer on the road or up the 23A road that connects up to the traffic circle, so you can't park there. And we will have a much better parking plan as this moves forward. I get that there's not a lot of sort of great options between the traffic circle and the Pear Tree Point, but we are working on that, and we will come up with something, and that'll have a lot of neighbor syndication before we move forward and finalize that plan. As for things that we have in the works right now, so as Monica mentioned, the widening of 23A, that's a project we've discussed several times, but that's widening it so that you have two-way traffic access up to the traffic circle to get to the one-way loop that's inside the island itself. That is pretty important for access generally, but particularly for emergency vehicles. And I've had a couple of folks reach out wondering why the rush to do all of that when we really haven't formalized a master plan yet. We have to have this road widened in any case, no matter what we do with the island. That's going to be something that we simply have to have for access for emergency vehicles. So that was not rushed. I think the plans for it are terrific, not just the entrance, but landscaping and just the way that's going to be done. I think everyone will find very attractive, but it has been done thoughtfully and is not something that we could really wait on. As for all these other things, whether it's parking or the overall plan for Great Island itself, we are going to put a ton of thought into that with plenty of opportunities for public input. So not to worry, but give it a little time for that, the agendas for those discussions to take shape. So, okay.
Just a question: is there a date in which we're trying to meet to hit for pedestrian access?
So that's a good point. As Monica said, not to just borrow your language. So these rules have been proposed. The Great Island Committee liked them and approved them. We do need to get further input from the chief for the police department. We need to spend some time with that, and we need to be crisper about the parking plan for all of that. That's going to go through one more turn of the crank, and at the next Board of Selectmen meeting, that should be the time where we have that information, and we'll have final approval on that, including a date that will open up the island for pedestrian access. Is that fair to wait to say?
So maybe early spring?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the date is, but we would get all this finalized at the next meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So nothing to approve right now. Any other further comments on our pedestrian access? Okay, thank you. All right, old business. Discuss a schedule for appointment and reappointment interviews and reservation of 1 meeting per month for executive session topics. So we're in the middle of budget season, so I won't do that just, thank you, Dan, do that just yet. But what I would propose is the second meeting in February. And do you have a date for that as to which meeting?
The 26th.
The 26th. So I'm going to propose that the 26th, that's a regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting. We're going to reserve that meeting for executive session topics only. So what that means is we will call the meeting to order, and that will be public, but then we'll take a motion to go into executive session. And we've got a backlog of appointments for committees and commissions. There is invariably sort of land and tax matters and legal matters that we have to discuss. So I'd like to run this experiment. We're going to reserve that meeting for just executive session. There will be no public meeting that day. And we will close the meeting in executive session, and that's that.
And so if you interview people for appointments, you'll appoint them at the next meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
So do you envision that being a remote A Zoom meeting?
Yeah, we're going to set that up to be a Zoom meeting.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right, great.
So what I'll do is, I'm actually going to collect times for those folks, just to make, and see what works best for everybody. It should be a fairly expeditious meeting, but we will not be here in person for that meeting. We'll do that
Good
by Zoom.
experiment.
Okay?
Should probably reach out to the town committees and let them know that that's going to be a drop dead
Yeah,
date
we're
in case
gonna
they're
have
putting
a-
applicants in or whatever.
Yeah, we'll do all that. That's a good
Perfect.
suggestion. So I just want to make sure there's nothing from your end that we're running afoul of to try this experiment.
No?
Okay, great. All right, so I will set that in motion, and we'll get notice out to everybody, particularly Mike and Sarah, although we talked to Sarah and she's good with this, to get that teed up, and let's run the experiment and see what happens.
Okay.
Okay, a couple more items. Review and approve minutes for January 8th, as well as December 18th. I actually went through both sets of minutes and didn't have any edits. Does anybody else have any edits or changes?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, could I get a motion to approve both minutes for the January 8th meeting and the December 8th meeting as prepared?
December 18th.
Oh, sorry, December 18th and January 8th as prepared. Marcy moves, Monica second, all in favor? Okay, that's great. Agenda review, any topics? Nope, no topics for agenda review. And I think we're done. Motion to adjourn. Monica moves, Marcy second, all in favor. Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.